All right, well, it's just 1 o'clock right now, so why don't we get underway if that's okay? Hi, everybody. My name's Dave Boniers. I'm with the U.S. Forest Service Northern Research Station, and we want to welcome you to today's iTree Web Workshop. And I just put up the first screen here for the folks that need to dial in for audio so that they could get to that information if they need to. The second thing is we're using Zoom as our platform here, and I hope everybody can hear us. And so there's a couple different things that you can look for on the screen that you have. It might look a little different because I'm presenting right now, but you should be able to find up in the top right corner a full screen icon at some point on your screen, and that will maximize your screen so that you can see some of the slides a little more clearly if you need to. And then also at the bottom of your screen, you should have the opportunity to click open a chat window. And in that Zoom group chat, you'll be able to ask questions. And then Robbie Colville is going to take is that no? I mean, Jason Henning is going to monitor that and relay the questions to us as we go during good break times during the presentations. So ask a question there because all the lines are muted by default because it just makes for a more enjoyable presentation without any background noise. So those are the two ways that we're communicating is via the chat, and you can listen to what we have to say here today. So what we have is we're going to take a look at one of the newer products from iTree called iTree Database. And we have Krista Heinlein from the Davey Institute and the Forest Service, along with Jason Henning and Alexis Ellis, who are all members of the iTree development team and work on bringing iTree tools out to the end users. So what I was going to do is turn it over to Krista, and Krista will carry it forward from here. Don't be afraid to open up the chat window and ask questions. Jason will be monitoring that, and then we'll hear from Alexis in a little bit as we move through the presentation. So I'll stop my sharing now, and Krista, you should be able to pick up.
Yes, that sounds great, Dave. Thank you. All right. So as Dave mentioned, we're going to talk today about one of our newer tools in the iTree family. And hang on a second. Still getting the screen share all squared away. There we go. One of the tools that we're broadening our transition to, and that's actually iTree Database. Some of you have potentially heard about this before, or we've mentioned that it's something that has been in development. And we especially want to welcome today any of the international users who were able to join us for this presentation. We realize that the timing might not be ideal for everybody, but our goal is to present the information about this newer international tool, or this catalyst for international use, and at the same time we're going to set this up as essentially a part 1 and a part 2. So the webinar that we'll be bringing to you in October will be a little bit of a follow-up on this. What we're going to talk about today is the way that iTree Database is set up to incorporate information for international locations that are currently not being supported for firing up something like ECO to do your analysis. So we're gonna talk about database for the most part today, and then we'll take a different look at the way that the resulting information and the information that ends up in that database can be utilized to run your ECO analysis. As many of you know, if you've used ECO previously, it's our flagship tool, but it's also, it does provide a powerful assessment for communities and foresters alike who are looking to do more detailed surveys with their areas. And iTree's growing capacities and relationships really with our Forest Service international partners as well as other international partners It does continue to demonstrate to us, anyway, the need to be able to apply these models readily for locations that are outside the US. And we have adapted ECO for utilization specifically within the UK, as well as Australia, but there are many other opportunities, and we've worked with other partners to understand the needs on that. And database is one of the ways that we can get there. It's an important catalyst to expanding the access of this tool. So outside of ECO itself, many of our international users know that Canopy, or iTree Canopy, is another way that international communities can make similar assessments for ecosystem services and benefits from landscape analysis. And this is something that can be done with worldwide locations. Definitely our most popular international tool. And because it utilizes the Google platform, it does offer users ways to capture information about land use, including canopy cover, impervious surfaces, and even development density and other available space for things like trees or other green infrastructure in terms of overall management strategies. And because it's web-based, it can be used to look at any location. Its capacities allow users to actually customize the results for international locations with respect to things like identifying comparable ecological zones, conversions of benefits that are calculated through the model, et cetera. And because it also Canopy is also ideal for assessing change over time. It works also within the Google Earth platform, which is a little bit different than Google Maps, but it can be utilized to compare what you can see in terms of current land use in your location to historic land use using images from Google's archive. And again, that is also something that can be used outside of US locations. So while this can be significant for monitoring the progress and the effectiveness, or even starting to assess the need for management programs and strategies, the development of iTree database continues. It allows iTree to broaden its ability, to provide effective assessment tools. Again, primarily eco, but for new and previously, as I mentioned, unsupported locations. And it offers, that allows us to offer more accurate analysis. And then eco includes forecasting information, again, for all levels of forest and community managers. So with that, Alexis Ellis, who works with out of New York and works with us on iTree as well as for analysis in the Forest Service. She's going to tell us a little bit more today about the status of iTree database and what it looks like to submit a program, what that means in terms of the ultimate quality checks that get done on that information. And as I mentioned, we're planning to follow this up in October with what we're calling part 2 of this expansion, and we'll look at the ways that ultimately your results, or this platform, can be utilized to incorporate data within the eco model and essentially expanding its utility. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Alexis, and we'll get started.
All right. So this, in essence, I'm going to give you a demo of iTree Database today. So I will go over how you use the tool and discuss a little bit more in depth of how we then take your data and integrate it for use into iTree Eco. So under our itreetools.org website, we can go to iTree Database. And it's not really in beta mode any longer. I think we'll probably upgrade it to actually that it is a solid application at this point. So there are 4 elements to iTree database. There's the species, the location, and along with the location comes precipitation and pollution data. And these 4 types of data are areas where we may be lacking for the international users. So we are looking for you to supply your information to us so that you can then in turn run your data through ECO. And currently we are set up to run in the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia. And we would like to expand to the rest of the world, obviously, ideally. So I will go to the iTree database website. And we try to make this tool as simple as possible so that users don't get bogged down in the details, but it's very easy for you to submit your data to us. So the process is that you will submit your data to us, and we will integrate it into our databases. And then the process could take up to 6 months, because in order to integrate your data, we actually need to upgrade a version of the software and put out a new installer. So 6 months is kind of the worst case scenario. However, it depends on when your submission is. So if you submit your data very near to the end of that 6-month period, then we will likely process it as soon as possible, and you will see that data sooner than later in the next version of iTree. So it's really when a new version of iTree Eco gets put out. So there are, as I said, the 4 elements. I'll start with species, because that's the simplest. So you maybe are looking at doing your tree inventory, and you have noticed that some of the species you have are maybe unique or rare. We have a list of almost 7,000 tree species, so we usually try to cover most every species. Hybrids and cultivars, there are so many of them that we try to avoid. We do add them to the database, especially when they're kind of unique in terms of their structure or their function, but typically they can be covered under that standard species. So if I'm in iTree database, I might want to view the database to see what species are in there. So I hit View Database up at the top, and then I can do a search. So I can search on scientific name or common name. In this case, I did find a species we don't have, Acer caudifolium. So I'm going to type Acer in here and go. And this is our list of our current species that have a genus of Acer. As you can see, it's quite extensive. It has all the associated information in there. So you might look at this and say, oh, Acer campestre. Well, that's not short-lived. That's actually very long-lived. So you can send us, if you find that any of the data in here is erroneous, we encourage your feedback in that respect. But I do not see Acer caudifolium, so I am going to add that to the database. So I go add to database, select species, and here we're asking for your contact information. This is mainly so that if there are issues with the data you submit, or we have questions from you, then we have a way of contacting you. So I'm going to and then your affiliation, if you'd like to, you're welcome to tell us what your affiliation is. So we'll hit proceed, and this brings us to our species edition location. So in here, I can select my genus, and in this case, it's Acer. As a note, if you were to go through this drop-down and you had maybe a very rare genera that you wanted to add, you might not see that in the database. So you have the option of selecting Add Genus and entering whatever genus you have. You can save that. You can also, if you had a unique family order, you can also add those as well if you don't see those in the drop-down. For this example, we'll add an Acer. And just as an example, if you tried to add a species that's already in the database, it's not going to allow you. So it's already saying the species is already present in the database. So Acer caudifolium, and it automatically tells you what family, order, and class is in there, and that is locked because obviously that's what Acer belongs to. For a common name, it defaults to the species name, which is fine, but if you know the common name, you are welcome to add it in there. So I will add that. And then some of these fields down here are required and others are optional. I strongly encourage any user to try to fill in even the optional data because the structure and function of the species is going to inform the model. So if we have any extra information we have, your results are going to be that much more correct, robust. So in this case, it's growth form. And just as a note, these question marks are all hoverovers, so they explain in greater detail what each of these parameters are. So in this case, it's a growth form, it's a tree, percent leaf type, that's referring to the leaf density. So this is a hardwood, leaf type is deciduous. And then these optional parameters tell you about the habit of the tree. So growth rate, it's moderate growing, it is long-lived, and then the height at maturity. So the average height at maturity for the species, I'll say 35. And then you can tell us what continent this may be native to. So this is native to Asia. And that is all we require for you to enter a new species into the database. So you select submit, and then it double checks, do you want to submit the data? And you say okay. And at that point, the data will come to me. I will verify it to the best of my knowledge and then load it into our database. So the next time a new version of iTree Eco is there and you're doing your inventory, you will be able to submit Acer cuttidifolium as an example. So if you wanted to add multiple species, you could select this button to submit another form and continue to add your species. So that is the species portion of it. It's pretty straightforward, and I think is a really good way for people to add to our database for their own, running their own data sets. So another option is the location aspect of this. So maybe we decide we're in, first of all, we're going to view the database. This is our location database. And for an example, I am going to do the province of Madrid. So we'll go down, if you hit S, it'll take you down to the S's. We'll hit Spain. And then in this drop down, we have all these locations. So we'll say Madrid and go. And what this is listing is anything that is currently in our database in Spain and Madrid. So we actually, the city of Madrid, we had a user upload that in the last version that was updated. So we actually do have the city of Madrid, but that's all we have. So let's imagine we want to add some other places in Madrid. We go to Add to Database and select Location. And we are going to fill out a very similar form to the species. So we select our continent, which is Europe. And these drop downs are filled in. This is not all data that we have in the database. We do have the continents, we do have the nations. However, we have it's a global database, and we've not vetted all the locations in it. So you may see all these states that are in Spain, but this data is not necessarily in our database at the moment. So we'll go to Madrid. And in this case, we already have data for the province of Madrid. So we can, if we want to, we can select other. And then it will prompt me to add maybe the name of a county or a district, or I know for each location, these are different designations, but it's basically the thing above the city in terms of your location designation. If you don't have one, you can leave this blank and we could go right to the city. In the case of the city, there's nothing, so we select other, and then it asks you for our city name. So let's say we do Basque. Then automatically, we know obviously the currency that is used, which is important for your dollar values associated with your tree benefits. Next, we need your latitude and longitude, and this is required, as you can see. So you can select that on the map, or you can enter it manually. So we will go over to Spain, and select a location. And I'm sorry, I don't know where the Basque area is, but I click on the map and it automatically fills these latitude and longitude fields in. You're welcome to change them if you don't think it looks right. And then we have our elevation, which is in meters. So that is another required field. The next two fields are associated with energy benefit analysis. And currently that is not available for international users in iTree Eco. However, we're working on making that available to you. So we do require a climate region. And you can go into the help menu and see a little bit more about how you select a climate region. But at the very most general level, it's a climate that's similar to your location. So in this case, Mediterranean type climate, California coast, electricity emissions, that is also associated with the energy benefits. And if you don't have that, it's optional. You don't have to fill it in. These other values are optional: mean minimum temperature, leaf on, leaf off. We actually do have a national database of frost-free lengths, which feeds into the model. So that's why those are optional, because we can actually look it up. And GMT offset, obviously, we can look up as well. So if you have it, great. If you don't, that's fine to leave blank. This next section, this is to determine your albedo values. And there's no national albedo kind of map out there. So we ask you a series of questions to then assign the albedo to your location. So warm weather, and if you just hover over this question mark, select yes if your average summer maximum temperatures are greater than 25 degrees. So we'll say yes, it's warm. Same with the rain. You can see what your average should be. We'll say yes. Vegetation, yes, and snow, we'll say no. And then finally, this is the ozone state. So this is to apply an ozone value to your area. And typically it's a location that has a similar latitude as your location. We'll select California here. So at this point, you have the option to submit your data. And then whenever the new version is out, you will be able to select that location in iTree Eco and run your inventory through Eco and get most results. However, this does not allow you to get pollution results, which I know a lot of people are very interested in. So in lieu of hitting submit here, you could go ahead and add precipitation data and pollution data. So we're going to do that. So instead of hitting submit, we'll say add precipitation data. And as a note, you could also do that from the top of the application. Add precipitation data. So now it says it knows what continent you are, nation, location. So we have all these years that are available for your precipitation data. And the reason we want your precipitation data is because we have the global database of NCDC, so that's the National Climatic Data Center weather station data. However, in most international locations, there is no precipitation data, and the precip feeds into our pollution modeling. So that is necessary for us to run your pollution data. So this allows, what we do is we take your precip data, we assign it to a weather station, and from that point forward, we now have precipitation data. So we'll assume we're looking at the year 2013. Say that's the data you have. You then select a weather station. And these weather stations are color-coded based on the quality. So most of the data, we can still run it through the model, but it's red because it's maybe poor. It might be missing, the data is intended to be for every hour of the year, and if it's missing large swaths, then we might code it as red, as it's missing a little bit of data, but it's still valuable to us, and it's still possible to run the pollution model. So in this case, we will select this station, and so you just click on the button, the little drop down, and then select the station number, and you're all set. So now you need to submit your precipitation data. So we have templates available. So in this right here, you can download this template, and the templates are also available on our website. And we'll open up this zip file. And as you can see, there's a different template for every year that we have data for. So in this case, we did 2013. So we'll open that up. And this file is locked, so it's you can't edit this hourly data. You need to have data for every hour of the entire year. And then up here, you can see we want precipitation in meters per hour. So you might have your data in another Excel spreadsheet. You could just copy and paste it into here. So in this case, we'll just fill it in generically, save that, and let's close this. And then we filled in our template on our local machine. We select choose file. Here's our rain 2013 good. We select the upload button. And it tells you your precipitation file has been uploaded. And then, if that's all you had, once again, you could hit submit. Or you could also, if you have pollution data, all the better, you can add your pollution data. So similarly, it knows where we are. It knows what year we're interested in. We can download our templates. I'll just show you what the pollution template looks like. Similarly, it's each pollutant that we're interested in with data for every hour of the year. In this case, we have an air pollution template for the leap year and an air pollution template for a regular year. 2013 is just a standard year. So we open this up. And we have, in this single table, we will have space for pollution information for all our pollutants that we process. So CO, NO2, PM10, PM2.5, SO2, and O3. If you don't have data for all of these pollutants, which many people don't, that is fine. You can leave this quantity of -999, and the application will know that you just don't have data for that. So when we process it, it's fine if that's left blank. If you do have data, obviously you copy and paste it into here. And I'll just upload my prepared file. So I choose my file, air pollution 2013, upload. It takes a moment, and there we go, it's been uploaded. And so when I'm done, so now I've made it through everything, and I want to submit all 3 of these data sets at once. I hit submit. Are you sure? Yes, I am. And then you have the option to submit another form if you wanted to do multiple locations. So in this case, my Forest Service internet might be a little slow. So what it's going to do is it's going to give you feedback about these data sets. The location data, I manually verify that, so you won't automatically get an email for that. But for the pollution data and the precipitation data, you will get an email such as this. So this is good data. So it says, thank you for your submission. Your pollution data has been verified, because we do that on the fly, and it will be incorporated into our database, and we'll be in touch. The precipitation data, we should get the similar email. It might just be slow to come in. Now, if you were to submit erroneous data, you would get a different email from us. And I'll just show you what that would look like. So let's see, we will, and just actually I'll tie this in together. So Australia, we have pollution, or actually let's do the UK. In the United Kingdom, we have pollution and precipitation data. However, it's not for every single year. So we do allow you to submit data for certain years for these other locations. So I'll just select, oh, I guess Chesterfield we don't, but sometimes it might be grayed out, but you can submit precipitation data for the UK if you want to add some additional value to what we already have. So we'll select our weather station. I'm sorry, let me change that to 2013. All right. So as you can see, there's a good weather station out in the ocean. Here there are a few more. This is considered a fair quality weather station, and in the red are poor quality, but still perfectly acceptable, so don't be concerned. And we can choose our file. Choose the bad data. And we'll submit that. And wait a moment. So what will happen if you submit data with an error, you are going to get an email telling you that the data is bad and you need to resubmit it. And you will receive a validation file as we wait for this. You'll receive a validation file that will tell you what is wrong with the data. I'm just gonna, while we're waiting, I'll just pull up an example. See, so this is the data set, and it says attached is the data validation. Please correct the errors and double check any warnings and then resubmit it. So in that case, you actually have to go back into iTree Database and resubmit your data. And this validation file is just a simple text file, and it'll tell you what's wrong. So in this case, we had we had changed the year. So it was the year 1900, and then some of the hours were wrong. It should have been 3, but it was 12, things like that. And then there's also a warning in here, and it says your maximum hourly rainfall is 1,000 meters per hour, and it tells you what the global average is. So in this case, we might say, all right, well, I'll fix my errors, but there was some extreme rain event, so that is fine. So you could resubmit your data, and you may then get another email that says that here's your data validation file, but there are some warnings associated with this data set. So it's asking you just to verify the warnings. And if you are confident, all you do, so in this case, we would download review this again, and it's telling me my max hourly rainfall is very high. Are you sure that this is an intentional number or was it a mistake? If you're confident in this, all you have to do is reply with confident in the email, and that tells us that you are happy with the data you've submitted and we will accept it. Barring any extreme, obviously 1,000 meters per hour is a little excessive. Probably have a conversation to figure it out. In the case of the pollution data, if you are missing data for some of your pollutants, you would receive the same thing. You'd get a warning message, just so we know you were sure that you only meant to submit data for certain pollutants and not all of them. Just a good way to verify the data without a lot of back and forth, without a lot of waiting on your end. You know right away, okay, this data is good, it was submitted, and they're happy with it. So that is the bulk of it. There is extensive help text associated with this. So everything I've covered today is covered in this help menu. View database, you have your species tab, your location tab. It describes what everything is. We're going to enhance this location tab to include additional information because I think users are interested in more just beyond what places are in there. We want to include what year we might have pollution for or precipitation data for. So we're working on that right now. Add to database. Once again, we have additional information about each thing you want to add to the database: species, location, precipitation, pollution. The location data, as I said, it goes into greater detail about choosing a climate region. You can see your climate zones, or the ozone data, same thing, it gives you additional information so you can see a table. And all the other elements are right up here as well. So I think that's it. We do welcome feedback. This is a very new tool. So in the feedback button, please, if there are any comments or suggestions, we would love to hear them. If you see any bugs, same thing. And we have a very strong kind of communication line set up for these international projects. Just knowing that there's new data, that there are issues that need to be worked out. So the communication lines are always open in that respect. So I think that is all.
Hey, hey Alexis, it's Jason. We had one question. Someone was just asking where they could find pollution data for a municipality. In this case, they're in the U.S. in New Jersey, and I don't know if you want to address if database applies at all to the U.S.
Database does not apply to the U.S. We have a lot of data for the U.S. already, and so we are not currently accepting any data in the U.S. There has been discussion about maybe allowing users to integrate their local data here in the US, but we haven't addressed how we want to do that yet. So that's maybe something for the future, but not right now.
How many international users have you had? How many are has the data made it into iTree already? And how many do you have sort of queued up for whenever the next update might happen?
So in our first release, which occurred about a month ago, we had almost 70 new locations added to the database. We had a couple very strong users in Mexico and China. So those were the bulk of them, but there were also, I mean, spanning the globe really were users, you know, Turkey, all over Europe. We had those, and then I would say of those, I think about 55, about 90% submitted pollution data, and about 50% of them submitted precipitation data. We currently in the queue have, I think, 5 or 6 additional locations. Not many, but as I said, we put a release out less than a month ago. So I imagine that will build in the upcoming months.
Alexis, that's great. Thanks. And is there anything that people working on these projects should be aware of in terms of either size limitations or how that might affect the QA/QC process and implementation, you know, once that data has been submitted, even if it is quite an extensive data set?
So are you talking about their tree inventory data or?
No, I guess I just mean, have you seen a difference between larger data sets versus smaller ones in terms of information being uploaded, and does that have any impact on turnaround time?
Oh, no, it doesn't.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
okay.
the bulk of the work is really just creating a new installer. So that's hence the 6-month lag time. But really loading the data into the database, I've streamlined the process. You know, there is obviously, I do a manual QA/QC to make sure none of the data is bad. But it really, that part doesn't take very long. So even if it's a huge data set, it's not an issue.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. I love that the interface talks to you. I noticed that when you got to certain stages of your data uploads, it welcomes you back. Welcome, Alexis.
Yeah.
Nice. It's a nice touch.
Alexis, I had another question sometimes we see on support, and that is why aren't there more recent years in there? So why don't we go up to 2016 or even 2017?
So that is a question. We have to pre-process all of the NCDC weather station data. I think we're very close to adding 2016. So that will be good. We actually just processed 2014 and 15, so that's relatively new. And I think my understanding from Satoshi is that 2017 is actually not all posted. Take a step back. 2016 was just finalized. So there is a lag time at the NCDC as well. So we don't have access to all of their data till well after the end of that year, because they then have to post it on their site where we bulk download it. But I think Satoshi said that he was done pre-processing 2016, in which case we should be able to add it relatively easily.
Great.
Yeah, I know that is an issue in international locations. These pollution monitor stations are relatively new, so I know it is hard to get data that's not very recent.
We just had another quick question that maybe you can answer. And how is Google Earth linked in so that it automatically populated the latitude, longitude? I don't know if that's a programming question, but maybe you can know how that works in some way.
Yeah, I do not know what the link is. I know we use it in a number of our applications, but unfortunately, I'm not sure what I think it's just a plugin, but I don't know the specific.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's some sort of Google Maps API that you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, that's all the questions we've gotten through the chat. If anybody else has a quick question, we'd be happy to take them now.
This is Dave. If you have a question, just type it in. What I'll try to do is I'll try to grab these, any of the answers that we have here. I think we've answered most of them verbally. I see you're getting one coming in from Jeff Tardell. Did you already answer that one?
No, I can answer that one though. The question is what operating systems for iTree and tools like iTree Eco and iTree Streets and iTree Hydro are part of our installed package that's free from the website, and those will only install on a Windows machine. I think they will still install on an XP, and they'll install on everything up through Windows 10. I'm not sure if the XP support, though, I think is kind of going away. But they should install on every other Windows machine. They will not install on a Mac. We do have a bunch of web-based tools, and iTree Database here is completely web-based, and those will just work on anything that has a web browser. All the web-based stuff will work on an Android. If you go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and you search for iTree, there's actually an app there now that will link you to everything that will work on mobile. And then the follow-up question is, can you run Streets on a smartphone? You can't run the software itself, but you can do mobile data entry, but the project has to live on a desktop or laptop.
Jason, when you go to the App Store or the Google Play Store, can you also go to the Apple App Store?
Not yet. We're still working on that. We were hoping it would be really easy to go from one to the other, but I guess from a programming standpoint, it's not quite as easy.
Yeah, no, that's what I've heard. So, all right, thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in, so what we'll probably do is try to wrap this up right now. We appreciate all the speakers for taking the time to put together a really a great overview of iTree Database, and I think it's something that most of us are a little bit unfamiliar with and haven't really worked with in the past. So that's great. Does anyone want to talk about the upcoming webcast that we have on October 25th that will be sort of picking up where we left off today? I don't know if Alexis or Krista or anybody wants to try to do that. I could just advertise it myself, but
Dave, this is Krista. Essentially, what we're going to do the next time we come back with a webinar is pick up some of this data, this international, the international data sets that have been submitted, and take a look at how that then gets processed through the ECO model, so that we're essentially looking at this from start to finish in terms of that international location perspective. Maybe take a look at, how the impacts of whether or not a data set, if it includes the precipitation and pollution data or not, and how to look at those kinds of considerations when you're actually running the eco model.
Okay, so that will be at 1 o'clock on Wednesday, October 25th. So I know we had nearly 50 participants today, so that was good, and hopefully we'll have a few more for that presentation. So that'll be picking up in the same theme with the iTree database expanded knowledge. And I just wanted to point out here for a replay of today's presentation, once we get it from Zoom, which should be later this afternoon, I'll get it up on the iTree website, on our webcast right here at unre.org/webcast/iTree workshops. And we'll also put up everybody's contact information with their emails, along with a couple links that were shown in the presentation, along with some other information that may be of value to you as a resource. So, and if you do go to the webcast/iTree workshops, all of the previous webcasts over the last year and a half are archived there for replay. The other thing is, for folks that are taking the continuing education credits, you go to www.unri.org/CEU. And those credits, the quiz I haven't made live for today's, the only reason was I didn't know what to put on the quiz because I hadn't seen the presentation, and it's the first time I've really had the opportunity to take a good close look at database. So I'll pull those questions together, and that should be live this afternoon at unre.org/CEU. And then I want to thank everybody who helped us out today. Alexis, Jason, and Krista, along with the rest of the iTree team, have been doing a great job in letting everyone know the latest advancements, whether it be today's database and with landscape and all of the other great programs. So I'll just wrap up here, and I'll leave this slide up here for the webcast/iTree workshops for the replays. And then don't forget, mark your calendar for October 25th, and we'll be picking up a little bit where we left off today on iTree database. So I want to thank everybody for attending, and we look forward to your attendance coming up in October. And to the presenters, thanks very much.
You got it. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Happy
Thanks,
to help.
everyone.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.